So your pricing, and there is a free tier, by the way, but your pricing is storage and egress. That is basically network IO, and then document read writes. So in the case we just looked at, if we look at the number of documents, we actually ended up with a document for the user and then 10 documents for each of the lists. In the case of doing a few documents, it doesn't really matter, right? We have a reasonable limit per, I believe it's a month, for the free tier. But imagine we get to have a popular application out there. So this popular application has lots and lots of users who have a lot of lists. When they open the application, we're paying for 10 document reads. Sorry, 11, right? One for the user plus 10 for everyone to lists. What if we restructured our application so we only paid for 1? Okay, let me show you how we could do that. So what we could do is we could modify a user. So a user has a name, right, an email, an ID, and then let's also put in a subset of the information from the list. Okay, let's actually put in the names and IDs of the 10 lists that should be displayed when we first open the application, right? So there may be 100 or 1,000 of them, but we're going to just store these 10 here. We'll also store them in the list subcollection, but we're caching that information here, I guess. So we could keep a cache of, we could really keep it sort of just like this. So we could keep, the question is if we want them to be, well, yeah, here's how we could do it. We could just keep an array. Arrays can't contain arrays, but arrays can contain maps. So we could keep in, let's say, the name, the ID, and these have values in them. The name, the ID, and the, we could keep the creation date, or we can just keep sort of an order, right? All we really need to know, because when we're again dealing with this array, when we add elements to the array, the order isn't necessarily maintained, right? So we don't know what location something's come in. So we'll keep at most 10. And the idea then is when we bring up a user, we have already their name, their email, their ID, and we have the 10 lists that we might need to display on the front screen. So that allows us to display on the front screen everything we need with 1/10, 1/11th the number of document returned. Okay, now there's a problem. And the problem is if we go ahead and update our lists. So let's say we change the name of a list. So we change the name of a list. Then we've got to change it in the lists subcollection. And then we've also got to update the lists field in the user. And by updating, really, remember, all we can do with an array is remove or add. We can't change any of the elements within the array. So what we would do, we would take out the existing map for that particular list. And then we would add a new map with our updated name. Similarly, if we change the order of the lists, we have to change the order that they're going to appear, and that may require changing all of them to update the order. Let's say we moved the last item in the list, the 10th item, to be the first item, right? So now the order, instead of being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, is 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we've got to go change the order of each of these. So the cost is it's more work when we're doing an update, but that's okay because we probably do orders of magnitude more reads than we do writes, right? Because what's going to usually happen? The user opens up their app, they look at their lists, they click on one of the lists. Okay, well, we had all we need, all the information we needed to display all those, and we actually have the ID of the list I clicked on too. So now we can directly go to our sub collection and ask for that particular list. We might choose to do the same thing in the lists collection. That is, for each list, we might want to choose to cache the items to be displayed when we first show that list. Right? Again, under the theory that perhaps they're just looking at this list and mostly doing reads and not doing writes. So we can just display, 10 or 20 or whatever would display in the first page. If we go beyond that page, then we've got to actually do a real query to the items subcollection to find those items.